We're almost done with styling the settings page now. You can see we've got a few things left. So the top one is the screenshot and the bottom one is the current application. So we have this header we need to style. We have some padding issues all around, just random places like the buttons, the PDM Enterprise. But the main issue is definitely these combo boxes and text boxes are not styled anything like we currently want them. We'll try and wrap this all up in one go now. We've got this list box here as well to style. But with us doing it already and building the framework for the styles, this should be fairly quick to finish off. So just minimizing the screenshot for now. Let's fix some basic things first. I think number one is once I've started seeing these buttons, I think the normal size buttons are pretty large. They're a little bit oversized. Let's just go into the styles for that. And in normal button here, let's just change this font size down a bit. Just make them a little bit smaller because I do think they're just a little bit oversized. There we go, that's made them a bit more reasonable. I also noticed, and I'm not sure at what point it come in, if you look at the preview here, it works, so you don't see any problems. But if we run the application, I think this theme relies on Windows Light theme automatically, so it always chooses Windows Light theme. Whereas when we run the application, it now picks up on my Windows Dark theme, and you can see, but when we run the application, you can see the difference. So see the boxes here are grey, and the black here, and the white on the hover, so we need to fix that. That's pretty simple. That'll just be in here again on button hover, which is there, and we set the background but we never set the foreground. So let's just reset the foreground to the same thing, and that should prevent the text from turning white when we have a dark theme. So it's kind of good that I've got the window set to dark, yet the preview in here is light. It lets us see both at the same time. So there's that little issue fixed. Now let's just jump in and style this header. So we have the labels here, and all I'm going to do is make 3 classes. We'll call one H1 for header 1, similar to CSS styling, and these I'm just going to call sub1 and sub2 for now. So 2 variations of subclasses we're going to do, like subheading classes. Instead of putting the styles in here and compiling and then coming back, for now until we finish with them, I'm just going to dump them in this user control in a styles section. So we'll do a style. Selector will be a label.h1 for header 1. We'll want to set the font size. Let's set that to quite large. Then we'll set the font weight. And probably black, I'd say, for this, as thick as it gets. That looks good. Now for the margin and padding. We probably just want to remove all the margin and padding, let's say. Looks okay. And I'll just copy and paste all this, save typing all again. We'll have a sub1, and for that we'll want the font to be quite a bit smaller. I think about 12 I think was right first. We don't want to make it bold, or in fact we probably want to make it bold instead of black, so it's got a little bit of thickness, and the bottom one will have no thickness. So we'll call that sub2. Font, I'd say probably still 12, same size. And then this one we want to have some colour. And also we probably want to set the margin on this to pull up a bit on the top, if I've got that right. That's wrong. So make the top, say, pull in a bit, and that'll bring it closer to the header. That makes it look a lot more like this, where we've got it close. And in fact, there is a size difference on them fonts. Let's just make this one 13, and this one 11 maybe. So there's a noticeable size difference. And we'll do the same margin, I think, for sub 2. I think all the sub ones want to have a slight pull in, so they're closer. And then we'll just do a property of foreground, a value of dynamic resource. And let's do the alert gradient. I think it's that one. There we go, that looks nice. They have like a nice little header, which is actually nicer than what we had previewed here. I think keeping that theme the same as the buttons kind of blends in nicely. That's our focus. And I think that's pretty much the header looks right now. I don't think there's anything else left to do on there. That wasn't too bad at all. Let's just try and reuse that subheader for these all directories and connection established. The all subdirectories is okay being the alert color. So we'll do classes sub1. And it's a text block. so we'll have to make a new style, because this is one of the downsides to the styling at the minute. You can't apply the same style to two different things. You have to basically copy and paste it. That gives us that nice little style there. The list box, let's just make a style ready for it. Oh, in fact, actually, it won't be on the style anyway. No, it won't be on the style. I'm just thinking of the margin. So for now, let's just get the list box, chuck a margin on there of 10 top and bottom, and that gives it the space it needs. I think this folder button as well doesn't have a margin on the left, which it doesn't. So that'll be just a left margin. And then if the text ever wraps against this edge, you won't see it going straight to the button. And now we want to do the same for the connection established ones. So we'll do a class of sub1. And we'll notice it does this, which we need to start the combo boxes to have margins. At the minute they don't have margins like the buttons do. But it's also like an alert. We kind of want a success color like a green. And then we can use alert, warning, and success as kind of three colors. So we'll just do this. We'll add a success. And in a label, we could go up to the styles, find a label, and do dot success. And in that case, we just want to take the foreground. And I kind of like the gradient, so I'm going to stick with the gradient idea. I'm going to make a new style. We'll call this success button gradient background. And it's not really a button gradient background, to be honest, it's just a success gradient. So I'll probably rename alert button background gradient as well after. But for now, let's just keep the color scheme simpler. For a green color, can we use this to select color? No, we can't. So let's just find a nice green first. So we've got pure green, and then we probably want a lighter green, so maybe like bringing them up. Too much. No, maybe bringing this down. Let's try that. No idea what it's going to look like. Put the success in, build, and then do we get a nice kind of gradient green? Yeah, similar style, kind of fades darker. It looks a little bit like it's kind of fading to nothing, like as if it's faded out. But for now, it's okay. I think, if anything, just maybe make this a little bit brighter. Maybe just remove them and go up a little bit in colour. Might just be a little bit too faded. There we go, that looks nicer. Just a gentle gradient. While we're here, I guess we might as well make the warning one as well, just in case we need red. So we'll do a warning gradient. And that will just be red to dark red, I'd say. And then we can try compile. And we'll change this to warning just to see what it looks like. And there you get like a warning one as well. And again, I think that's a little bit dark. There we go. So now we've got some triple colours for depending on what they are. We've got another connection established further down. And this one is already a label. So it'll be sub1 success. And there's that. Now this isn't close enough to the button because the button's already got a margin of 10 and these haven't. So in this specific instance, for ease, we'll just do a margin of 0 minus 10, 0, 0, and it'll just remove that added space there. The buttons want some spacing, so that fixed. These buttons down here want the same spacing, so we just make use of the stack panel spacing. The settings cache and PDM have got too much spacing in, and that's because we put spacing up here, but then it's adding extra. So instead, we just want to add margin onto these. And this is all really because the grids and things don't have margins, so we can't easily specify them. So we're just nudging them manually for now. It's not that much work, and it's the simplest solution for now without getting too complicated. That's why we had the extra spacing on the button there as well. So that won't be needed once we remove the padding on there. In fact, we probably want then more padding. So we probably want an extra 5 adding back. or just zeroing it. There we go. And then we need space in between the grid here. So margin 0, 10. And I think, let's just run this now, but I think that's everything bar the styling of the buttons. So we have this here, buttons, everything's fine, the space there's fine. We've got to style this still. Space in here is fine. This needs to be styled to give it the extra margin, so that's going to get added to the main style. This is fine. This again, we need space in between them. So that's one thing. Space in there is fine. Yeah, so I think all the spacing's okay now. It's just the styling's left on the combo box, list box, and text box. And for now, we'll just add the space into these elements manually, which is in here. So this will just have a margin of nothing on the left, nothing above, 10 to the right. And then the next one will have the same. And that gives us the spacing we want there. So next up, let's just style this list box, I think it is. Yep, we've got the list box here. So for that, if we go to the top, start a new style, select it on all list boxes, this is going to be the default style. First thing we want to do is set that background. So we'll do a binding to, I don't know which one we want. Maybe this primary background gradient. Yeah, looks okay. We need to add a border as well so we can see it in white or in primary foreground. So border brush. Will be primary foreground. And border thickness, we always set to 3 at the minute. And then do we need a foreground as well? And that will be primary foreground. There we go, that looks nice already. Now we have the hover effects and the select effects. So let's just copy this, paste over. And now the way the list box works, it won't just be selected like this, because it's not the list box selected that has the value. It's the list box items. So you'd have a selected like that. And you can see now we're styling the selected item. And we want to style the foreground and background only. The foreground we want to keep the same, but the background we want to now highlight with the hover. So it's the primary hover background. And you can see it's not styling. And that's just like most controls. You'll need to select it into the template more than likely. Get the content presenter. There we go. Now we have that. And just for good measure, you typically add the hashtag part underscore content presenter. Just so if the style ever gets overridden and there's multiple content presenters, you wouldn't select the wrong thing. And then the last thing is on the hover, you can see the text is black. So we need to also implement just on hover, keeping the text white and also having this hover color. So exactly the same as this. We want this exact style. Copy and pasted, but we want this to be on hover. So we should just be able to remove all that and do pointer over, because the foreground and background should just pass through the styles. And then you see it's now styling the entire background, so it's not quite what we wanted. So we'll still select into the content presenter of the items. So we're only styling the item then. And that should work. Let's just build, maybe. Maybe we just do this then. Get everything right up to the same point. And just do pointer over the list element. There we go. So now we have pretty much, I'd say, what we want on the list box. That's styled nicely. Moving on, we'll do, say, the text box next. So we'll do a style, selector, text box. Similar again, we want the border like the buttons. So we'll want the setter property, border brush, and we'll bind that to this nice colourful gradient. There we go. We'll set the border thickness to 3, like we do with all the others. There's that. Now we want this hover effect to change from black to just staying the same. I don't think we want to change the border. So we copy all this and do point it over. And in classic fashion, that isn't working. So let's just find the text box template and see why. There's text box. So if we come inside, content of the template is here. And let's look at what it's made up of. So there's a border element at the top, which is likely the border element. And then inside we've got all the other stuff, watermark, scroll viewer, text blocks. So I'm going to guess it's going to be this border element with the name part border element. Let's have a go at that. It's a type border. So we'd want to do the pointer over the text box. We'd want to go into the template, and then we'd want to select a border with a name of part border. And there we go. So now we're selecting the border. This background, I think by default we want the background to be just the effectively see-through, so the primary background color. Primary background. There we go. And then on hover, we haven't got any text in these. Let's just put some text in one of them so we can see. We might as well put text in both of them, to be honest. There they are. So this one can be my name, which, yeah, you can see in there. This one wants to be a password. So normally, to just turn it into a password, you just add a password character. We'll do a star. And there we go. Now, in here, I've done a style where you have this kind of watermark inside, and this does support watermarks, I believe. So if we did like a watermark username, and delete that, you can see it's got username, and then we start typing and it disappears. There's also a floating watermark that you can set to true, and then watermark, say, is username. This puts it above. But the problem with that is, if you remove the text, it shrinks and becomes not a floating watermark. And then once you type, it grows again. So it's not really what we want. To save implementing an entire new text box for now, how about we just try a slightly different style? I think cramming the text right up here in a really tiny text is not very accessibility friendly. People with poor eyesight are not going to see that text anyway. So let's scrap that idea. And let's just put some text above for now. So we're going on a slight tangent here, but we might as well get it sorted. So we have the grid here. Let's just do row definitions and just put 2 rows in. So we can have labels above. And then here we'll do a label. Grid.row will be 0. Grid.column will be 0, will be explicit. This will be vault name. And then the original content will be on row 1. So let's just place that in all 3. So they've nudged down, and now we've got a label. If we do sub 2, there you go, a nice discrete label. Simple as that. Copy that over these 3, and go to column 0, 1, and 2. Change this to username and this to password. And there's some nice content. And put the name back in there. So I like that now. Let's do, well, for one, the text is wrong. The text needs to be white, I reckon. So let's just try adding a foreground as primary foreground. There we go. Now the hover. I'd say that hover wants to be obviously the hover color. So we have background, dynamic resource of primary hover background. There we go. And again, the foreground needs to stay white. And a border doesn't have a foreground. So let's just copy that style. Pointer over, maybe just the pointer over itself. Foreground, primary foreground. Will that work? Yeah. Yeah, there we go. That's worked. Oh, and then when you've got selection now, you've got this default style, which we don't want, so that will be focus. So I'd say we want to probably copy all of this when we did. Change the pointer over to focus, presumably select the exact same thing and keep the style the same, except foreground isn't in there either. So I think we're best just putting foreground in. Oh yeah, you can't have foreground in there, that's why. We've got the same issue now, we just need to do the focused and normal foreground colour. But also, now we've got a style for focused, how about we try this alert background while we're at it? So it kind of highlights when you're focused. I think it'll be that one. There we go. That's quite nice. So you kind of know which box is focused as you're typing. Let's just run this as well at the minute to make sure it looks the same in both the dark and light styles. So we go to settings. Yep, I think that looks the same for both. Yep, that's okay. So the last thing then is again, you only see it here as well. In here, when we're hovering over, or when we're selecting, it's going black. So that's the one thing we need to figure out. Where do we set is that focus then, or hover? I think that's focus. So it's focus foreground. So maybe we just do focus as well. Set the foreground for both. Yeah, there we go. Sorted. So now, focused box. Type in, and it stays the right colour. We've got this that selects and looks nice. All the buttons seem to be correct. So I think the last thing now is the combo boxes. But I think we'll probably save the combo box for its own dedicated video because this is going to be quite a complicated control. You have a text box inside, you've got a glyph for the arrow, you've got states when it's expanded and contracted. These will have their own pop-up that you need to style, so there's going to be quite a lot involved. That is not going to be a quick styling. One thing we'll just do is do some basic styling first to do a border and padding just to get the default initial state looking okay, so the application looks a little bit better. And then we'll do the in-depth styling afterwards. So we'll do a checkbox, not a checkbox, a combo box. We'll do the margin first, which is just top and bottom 10. We'll do some padding inside, which now makes it the same size. We'll do a border brush and a border thickness, so it matches all the other styles. Do a border thickness of 3. Border brush will be the colourful gradient, which is there. Yeah, that's not it. That one. There's that. So it's now the same size. We'll ignore all the hover and everything else as we mentioned. We'll style them after. Can we get the background there at least? Yep, so we can at least do the background. Dynamic resource, primary background. So there's some just basic styling, so at least it blends in for now. And obviously we've got all the issues with hover and drop down. And if we just bind the combo box to item source, binding, and then was it paths? Yeah. Just bind it to that so we have something where we can at least select and see the style. And you can see it's all obviously kind of messed up. Let's just copy that further down as well. Let's get the item source, paste it in there. So now the combo boxes have got stuff we can select. And I think once we've done that combo box, that'll be everything we need for the settings UI. So that's what we're looking like now. It's all really coming very close to the actual screenshot. So you can see the side by side now. What we wanted and what we've got are very similar. That's gone to green now. Just noticed the settings. We'll fix that in a second. But yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I wanted the UI to look like. So last thing to wrap up then, let's just fix this settings header, which I'm not sure why, but we have sub 1 has gone green. Why has it gone green? So only label, there, label sub 1, I've changed the wrong thing. That goes to there, and the success on there should be success gradient. I've kind of messed up all the order of things there. So the success needs to come after the normal, otherwise it will not get styled. And there we have it. Now back to what we want. So that's it for this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next.